Have you ever been cruising down the endless stretch of Route 66 or rushing along a sun-baked I-95, glanced over at a roaring 18-wheeler beside you and suddenly stopped dead because of something that made absolutely no sense? Through all that diesel growl and that familiar smell of exhaust, you can see the massive wheels spinning, the heavy steel frame rattling. But then, your eyes land on one particular row of tires. They're not touching the ground. They're just floating there, turning slowly in the air like ghosts mocking gravity itself. Have you ever wondered why a single semi-truck can destroy a road with the force of 10,000 cars combined? And why those floating wheels are actually saving money straight out of your own pocket Welcome to Mysteries of Simple Things, the channel where everyday secrets are uncovered and explained. When we were kids sitting in the backseat of the family station wagon on a summer road trip, a lot of us probably pointed at those wheels and heard Dad say, "Those are just spare tires, honey." But the truth, like everything in the endlessly fascinating world of heavy machinery, is far more interesting and practical than that. Those ghost wheels are not spares. They are not a glitch in some video game. They are a genuine engineering masterpiece that saves trucking companies billions of dollars and keeps the arteries of America from getting ground into dust. To understand why they float, we have to roll the clock all the way back to the 1950s, when President Eisenhower's federal highway system was just taking shape, and engineers stumbled onto a terrifying truth about weight. Brace yourself for this number, because it is going to permanently change the way you look at every pothole you hit tomorrow morning. According to the famous fourth power law of American road engineering, road damage does not grow gradually with weight. It grows exponentially. That pothole you hit on the highway this morning, statistically speaking, it was not put there by 10000 sedans. It was put there by just one overloaded truck axle. If you double the weight on an axle, you do not double the road damage. You multiply it by 16. Triple the weight and the damage jumps to 81 times worse. It was this brutal law that forced the US government to scramble and create the Federal Bridge Formula in 1975, a piece of legislation born out of a genuine national emergency when bridges all across the country started crumbling under the exploding weight of a booming trucking industry. Picture yourself walking across a thin frozen lake on a cold Minnesota winter morning. If you stand up straight in high heels, you will punch straight through the ice and drop into the freezing water below. But if you spread yourself flat or strap on a wide pair of snowshoes, the ice holds you. Why your body weight has not changed, but you have spread it over a much larger area. This is exactly what ghost wheels, officially called lift axles, do for a truck. When a dump truck is hauling 20 tons of gravel, that weight is simply too much for 2 or 3 standard axles to handle. Left unchecked, it would grind asphalt the way you crumble a cracker in your hand. So the driver flips a switch inside the cab and something remarkable happens. In exactly 4 seconds, the truck grows new legs. That is faster than it takes most of us to type out a text message. Massive industrial airbags inflate and push the floating axle down onto the pavement with thousands of pounds of pressure. Just like that, the truck has slipped on its mechanical snowshoes. The weight spreads out, the pressure on any single point of road drops dramatically, and this rolling giant can now cruise along without racking up $1,000 fines or threatening to collapse a 50-year-old bridge somewhere in Pennsylvania. But here's the natural question that follows: if more wheels protect the road, well, why not just leave them down all the time and call it a day? The answer, like nearly every great American story, comes back to one thing: money. Truck tires are nothing like the tires on your F-150 sitting in the driveway. A single premium long-haul tire can run anywhere from $500 to over $1,200 a pop. Replace a full set on an 18-wheeler and you have spent enough to buy a brand new car. Every single mile that a tire drags against hot asphalt is another mile of money evaporating out of the trucking company's pocket in a thin cloud of rubber smoke. On top of that, there is rolling resistance. Drop 2 or 4 extra wheels onto the pavement and the engine has to work harder to haul them along, burning at least 2 to 5% more fuel. For a fleet logging millions of miles every year, that 5% is the difference between a profitable year and a bankruptcy filing. And then there is a little secret that truck drivers have been whispering to each other at rest stops up and down the East Coast for years. Most toll systems in America charge based on the number of axles touching the road. By lifting that extra axle when the truck is running empty, a driver can legally reclassify their massive rig as a smaller vehicle in the eyes of the toll camera, cutting their bill at the booth by as much as half. You might call it the wisdom of the cab, but it is really just part of the economic math that keeps the price of milk and bread and building materials at the store from shooting through the roof every time fuel costs tick up. But there is another reason to lift that axle, one that matters even more than money in the long run, and that is maneuverability. American trucks are long. If you have ever tried to swing a 70-foot rig around a tight city block in New York, or back into a muddy construction site in Texas, it borders on a physical ordeal. When all the wheels are locked to the ground, they naturally want the truck to keep going straight forever. If you force a truck with too many fixed axles into a sharp turn, the rear wheels stop rolling and start being dragged sideways across the pavement. Drivers call this scrubbing. Tires get chewed up against the asphalt. It makes that ugly, shrieking noise you have probably heard in a warehouse parking lot, and it leaves long black skid marks across the road. Leave that extra axle down and the truck acts like a clumsy icebreaker. Instead of an agile giant, and shredded tires or a broken frame are only a matter of time. Lifting that axle is basically how a driver instantly shortens the truck's wheelbase, letting the big rig pivot smoothly through tight corners and back cleanly into narrow loading docks without leaving chunks of rubber on the ground. There are two main types you will see out there: the pusher axle, which sits in front of the main drive axle and helps stabilize heavy loads, and the tag axle, which trails at the very back and protects the rear. And in states with the toughest weight regulations like Michigan, you can even spot what they call super dumps rolling down the highway. These mechanical monsters carry up to 7 axles total, looking like an enormous centipede cruising down the interstate. They are the ultimate shapeshifters, capable of nearly doubling their legal carrying capacity simply by dropping every leg to the ground when the job calls for it. The existence of these quietly floating ghost wheels is a reminder of the hidden complexity of the trucking world that most of us roll past every single day without a second thought. They represent a perfect collision of classical physics from the Eisenhower era, rigid legislation hammered out by Congress in 1975, and the relentless human drive to squeeze every last cent of efficiency out of every mile. The next time you spot a set of wheels spinning freely in midair, remember that it is not waste and it is not a mistake. It is a smart machine adapting in real time to protect the roads you drive on and the money in your wallet. Next time you are driving the family out on a summer trip and your kid points at those strange floating wheels and asks what they are, go ahead and smile. Tell them about the giant snowshoes. Tell them how 4 seconds of inflating airbags can save an aging bridge from collapse, and how the drivers out there are quietly calculating every mile to get goods to us as safely and cheaply as possible. American trucking is not just noise and exhaust fumes. It is a carefully tuned symphony of engineering and hard-nosed practicality, and those floating wheels up there are one of its best notes, proof that sometimes to go farther and last longer, you have to know exactly when to touch the ground and when to lift yourself above the weight you do not need to carry. Safe travels out there on America's highways, and next time one of those shape-shifting giants rolls past, you give them a little nod. They have earned it.